Welcome to IELTS 9. Today we are going to take a look at one of the writing task samples from the TOEFL test. I realized that one thing that a lot of students struggle with is the planning and just knowing what you're supposed to do in the integrated task of the TOEFL test. So let me go to the TOEFL writing task 1. Also, you can access this page. This is on my website, IELTS9.com. I'll put it in the descriptions down below so you can click on the link or just you can type it. So let's see. Let's come here. I'll choose my favorite. This is one that I use in all of the lessons. Uh, it's about broccoli. So in the integrated task, you get 20 minutes total, and you have 3 minutes to read the passage. Then you listen to a lecture, and then you have to show the connections between the two. Almost always, you get actually not always you get a problem or a solution or an idea, and then you get 3 points related to it. Now, if you're trying to prove something, you get three different types of evidence. Or if you are saying something is good, as is the case with this one, you are going to get three advantages. Or you may get three disadvantages if the person is against something. For example, you may say, I'm against smoking and I think it should be illegal. And then you'll get three ways in which smoking can harm your health, mental or physical, or society in general. So, here, let me show you how I would approach the writing task. Broccoli is a widely popular vegetable in the United States, but it can only you already see where this is going. But it can only thrive in temperate climates with cool summers. So we have a problem. The problem is we really like broccoli, but it cannot be grown everywhere. Due to this restriction, 90% of the broccoli consumed in the US is grown in the cooler areas of California located on the West Coast. So again, we know the problem now. If you're taking notes, which you should, this is your first note. Okay, problem, like broccoli, cannot grow it. It then has to be transported about 4,000 kilometers across the country to reach customers on the East Coast, consumers. This situation, however, may soon change. Okay, so we have the problem. Now we are getting the solution. Scientists are working on developing a new type of broccoli that can be grown, cultivated, on the East Coast despite the region's warmer summers, offering several possible benefits. Okay, of course. So we had the problem, we had the solution, and the writer, we are going to refer to him as the writer, believes there are several benefits. Obviously, there are going to be three. Now, before I continue, remember during your throughout your passage, it's a good idea to refer to both sides as writer and speaker, or the professor and the lecturer, or the author and the lecturer, whichever you choose to go with. I do not recommend going with pronouns like he, she. Whichever you go with, writer, author, professor, lecturer, keep it consistent. Do not change it throughout the text. It becomes very confusing. And then in the middle of the text, I have no idea if the student is telling me about the author or the lecture. Keep it consistent. You can use synonyms for everything else, but for the people whose opinions you are covering, do not keep changing it. That was actually a question that yesterday came up in one of the classes. So the timer ran out, but no worries. I actually had a pop up after this in the beginning, but then I realized it stresses students out, so I removed it. So, benefit one. So, as you are taking notes, this should be okay. Problem, broccoli. Solution, new type of broccoli. And advantage one of the new type of broccoli. Growing broccoli locally on the East Coast and delivering it to nearby stores could reduce costs for consumers. The title of paragraph one, or the topic of paragraph one, cost. Personally, I would just put a dollar sign for myself. Transporting broccoli from California takes several days and incurs significant transportation costs. By producing broccoli closer to the market, transportation costs would be lowered, allowing stores to sell broccoli at a reduced price. So basically, the writer's opinion is okay, we are transporting it, transportation costs a lot. We reduce transportation, and basically, we lower the distance. We also lower the cost of transportation, meaning the price will go down. So basically, for myself, I would say no transportation, low price, good. That's basically what the writer is trying to say. Secondly, the new variety of broccoli is likely to be more appealing to consumers than some other newly developed crops. Now you should ask yourself, why wouldn't the consumers like some of the products? Why are some of the products less appealing to consumers? Scientists are using traditional crossbreeding methods to create this broccoli, selecting plants with traits such as heat tolerance. So, so I expected this to have more examples. So scientists are choosing the traits that they like. So we are talking about modifying the plants, and by doing crossbreeding or genetic modification. Now, unlike genetic modification, some variety, we don't care about the examples. Unlike genetic modification, this thing uh, doesn't spark controversy among consumers, or it's less likely to spark controversy. Now, again, we are hearing about both sides. So people don't like GMOs, genetically modified organisms. They hate GMOs, but the writer is telling us, okay, the methods that we are using is not really similar to the other GMOs that we had, the ones that people hated. So it's more likely that people are going to actually like these new products. And this doesn't really sound like an advantage, but he is just saying, well, people probably won't hate it. The new broccoli does not involve genetic modification, so it is less likely to be met with opposition. Again, the writer says, uh, traditional method, not like GMOs, people may not hate it. Finally, vegetables are at their most nutritious. Okay, immediately the title for your last paragraph should be nutrition, health, fresh, something like that. When eaten soon after harvest, as they retain more of their vitamins and nutrients. So, fresh equals better. Fresh equals more nutrients. The longer it takes for vegetables like broccoli to reach customers, or I keep messing this up, consumers, the more nutrients they lose. Locally grown broccoli can reach East Coast residents more quickly, making it a healthier option compared to a broccoli shipped from California. So, if they are local, there is no transportation, meaning the time it takes for the crops to reach the customers is lowered, which means more nutrients and it's better, basically. So now we have the writer's opinion. We need broccoli. We love broccoli. We cannot grow it. Solution: we need a new type of broccoli that can be grown everywhere. And this new type will have three benefits. One, lowers the cost. Two, people may not hate it, even though it's genetically modified using traditional whatever method, we don't care. And three, this will actually be more healthy because it's fresh and it has more nutrients. Now let's see what the lecturer does. Immediately as she starts, in the beginning, you are going to realize if she agrees or disagrees.
Now listen to part of a lecture on the topic you just read about.
East Coast broccoli might not actually be as successful or beneficial as its creators claim.
Okay, immediately you know she is going to disagree. Now in your head, you should be thinking, if she's also most of the time they disagree, the lecturer and the passage. It's possible for them to agree, similar to how in the speaking part, in speaking task 2, most of the time they disagree, but sometimes their ideas actually align and the speaker gives more examples or elaborates on the points that the passage has already brought up. So in here, uh, she started by saying she disagrees. Now ask yourself, and you should have done this before the lecture, how can someone disagree with the cost going down? So cost going down is almost always a good thing. So either she will say that's not going to happen. That's one way she can disagree. Or she can say, well, it probably happens, but it's not a good thing. Or she can say, well, it happens, but something else also happens at the same time. Now, again, for this one, why would anyone be against good food and higher nutrition and better vitamins, better nutrients, and fresher food? Probably she is not against that. Probably she will say, actually, it's not true that they are, for example, that fresh vegetables have more nutrients. So again, she is not against the idea of fresh being good or nutrients being good, but she may say the two don't really have a connection or the topic doesn't apply to this broccoli that we are talking about. So those are all the options that you should consider before listening.
First, it's true that growing and selling crops locally saves money on transportation costs. But that will not necessarily make the new broccoli cheaper for consumers. Yes, the new breed of broccoli will be able to survive the hot summers on the East Coast. But unfortunately, it will also have lower yields than the broccoli grown on the West Coast. This means that farmers on the East Coast will harvest less broccoli per hectare, and so they'll have to sell their produce at a higher price. This price increase will cancel out the savings on transportation. So the East Coast consumers will probably not save any money buying the locally grown broccoli.
Okay, I mean, I could pause that a lot earlier, but I wanted you to see the whole thing. Also, pay attention to how both the passage and the lecturer separate the different points. This was her first point, addressing the first advantage. And then she says,
Second,
now you see, these are all separated. Again, another mistake that I see among the students is they actually put everything together. They talk about transportation costs and the fresh nutrients and all that, all at the same time. You cannot mix the different points. These are three distinct advantages brought up by the passage, and she is addressing them one by one, which means you will probably have an introduction paragraph introducing both sides and their positions and how they interact. And then one paragraph for this, both sides, one paragraph for this, both sides, and one for the last one. Now, this is how I would approach the second paragraph. This is not how I would write it, but this is the idea. The writer thinks lowering the distance and making the distance shorter can actually reduce the cost of transportation, which will eventually lower the prices for the consumers. However, the lecturer, although she agrees that lower transportation costs is a good thing, she brings up another problem, which is okay, this new type of broccoli has a lower yield, which means farmers are not getting as much produce. So if they have less produce, that means they are going to sell it at a higher price. So we are lowering one type of cost, but we are increasing another type of cost. And these two will probably cancel each other out. So in the end, the price will not go down. It may even go higher. So now that's the first thing. That's the first idea. Now you make it a little fancy, you put it in a paragraph, and that's going to be it. Now, secondly,
even though researchers are using traditional breeding techniques in creating the new broccoli, the public might still be suspicious. You see,
so you're starting to see a pattern. She agrees with some things that the author says, but then she brings up her own points, the counter arguments. So she said, yes, they are using a method that is good, a method that is more accepted by the public. But now there is something.
financial support for this research comes from the same companies that created genetically modified crops in the past. Because those companies used genetic modification techniques with other crops, many American consumers distrust those companies and might distrust any project that those companies are involved in. This might lead the consumers to reject the new broccoli as well.
Okay, so the author mentioned, okay, look, it's a new type of broccoli and it's going to use a type of technique and a method that is not really hated by the people. And she says, yeah, okay, the technique itself, the method that we are using is not is okay, but the companies that are doing it have a shady history. They are known for doing shady things in the past. So people will probably associate them with doing shady stuff. Also, again, obviously, I wouldn't write it this way, but I'm just giving you the idea. So they have a bad history, and people may distrust the new type of broccoli because the people who are funding these projects, people who are sponsoring these type of products, are the same companies that have done the other bad things in the past. Now, let's see.
Third, it's true that fresh broccoli has the greatest amount of health-promoting nutrients and vitamins.
So yeah, again, the lecturer agrees with the claim that blah blah blah. However,
But is that a good argument for creating a new breed of broccoli that can be grown on the East Coast?
however, she doesn't agree that coming up with a new strain of broccoli is the wisest idea. Why?
Not necessarily. Other vegetables that are already grown on the East Coast contain similar nutrients that broccoli contains.
As a note, I would just write alternatives or just alts for myself or others. And probably she will give an example.
For example, kale.
So, alternative, kale. Now, you can already imagine what she's going to say. Okay, kale doesn't have the problems that broccoli has. So, probably it can be grown everywhere. You should already assume that. And also, it has the same benefits as broccoli. So, it doesn't have the problems, but has the same or similar benefits.
A leafy green vegetable provides comparable health benefits. And kale is in some respects better. It's grown on the East Coast not only during the summer, but also during the fall and winter. Instead of wasting
Obviously. So, the benefits are comparable, maybe even not as good as broccoli, but it doesn't have the problems that the broccoli has. So, it has similar benefits, even though they can be lower. We don't care, but they are still benefits and they are comparable to broccoli, but we don't have the problem. So if you remove the whole thing about transportation and we get almost the same benefits, that's a great idea. So that's what the lecturer is trying to tell you. That's it. We don't really need to listen to the rest. So in your writing, you should start by presenting both sides. Uh, the problem, the solution, and then both sides. So uh, there is a problem with broccoli and how it is grown. It can only be grown in a specific type of climate. And the writer, the passage, brings up or introduces a solution or mentions that we can solve this problem by coming up with a new type of broccoli. And they cover the benefits of it throughout the passage. Again, this is not how I would write it. I'm just trying to give you the ideas. You just turn them, you organize them, and you write them down. And it basically it covers everything in terms of task achievement. That should be 100%. So the writer covers the benefits, the possible benefits of this new type of broccoli. However, the lecturer disagrees and explains why those possible benefits may not uh, be, or those benefits uh, may not come to fruition, may not become a reality. So then, in the first paragraph, you cover the idea that, okay, one side thinks lowering transportation costs is good and it's going to make things cheaper. Then you say the other side, however, although she agrees that lowering the cost is good, she doesn't think it's realistic because if we do this, we are lowering the yield and that in turn will increase the prices eventually. Second, the writer thinks people are not going to hate the broccoli because it's using a new, or no, actually not new, but traditional method. However, the lecturer says, yes, although the traditional methods are fine, the companies that are doing it are not fine. So people are probably going to hate that. And then, again, the author claims that the broccoli grown on the other side of the country will be more nutritious because it's more fresh when it reaches people. The writer agrees. However, she thinks just because the broccoli can be fresh, it doesn't mean that it's a good idea to come up with a new type of broccoli. She thinks we already have better options like kale, which can offer the same benefits without facing the issues that the broccoli is facing. That would basically be, in terms of task achievement, you would get 100% if you do that. So on the website, you can just write your writing here. As soon as you press submit, I'm going to receive your writing. And if you want, you can actually request a score estimate, and I'll be happy to help. So thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.